Yes, hello and welcome to another Searchmetrics webinar. Today it's my pleasure to have can announce that Arthur Kosch, the German JavaScript SEO guru, is with us here at Searchmetrics in headquarters in Berlin. Hi, Arthur.
Hello, Björn.
Today we are speaking about JavaScript SEO, one of the hot topics in the SEO industry for now quite some time. We will speak about crawling, indexing, and auditing of JavaScript web pages, and of course we will show you on a live example what you can do if you're just facing a JavaScript-based website or relaunch. But let's start first with you.
So, hi Björn, thanks for the invite and thanks for the lunch later we had. So my name is Arthur Kosch. I have 8 years experience in SEO and online marketing, especially technical SEO. In Germany, I'm known from publications and professional articles and speeches on SEO conferences. And yes.
So what brought you to JavaScript?
It was like 2 years ago. A client was calling and said, we need a SEO audit. We're just relaunching in a couple of days. Can you do it quickly? Of course we can do it quickly. And after that, I was checking that the whole website was built by JavaScript. And when you was looking into the source code, you just saw nothing. And it was 2 years ago, so I dived in deeper into JavaScript SEO and found out there was like any resources or kind of articles or something for this topic. Mm-hmm. So was like experimenting a lot and was trying to figure out how to handle JavaScript. And yeah, it's like 2 years of experience with JavaScript and SEO.
And I know that you published a big JavaScript guide. Is it in English available as well?
No, it's just in German.
Just in German for now. But there are other articles and references. We can name it from Bartos.
Yeah, exactly.
For example, right?
Exactly.
Okay, before we come to my person, I just show some nice pictures of you, of course, at great conferences. So he's really one of the top JavaScript SEOs in Germany. And before I come to my person, I just want to give you a quick wrap up about this webinar. So it will take place take an hour approximately. So we will have a nice dialogue here. You can always ask questions. Just put the questions into the chat box. My nice colleague here will write down all the questions and will give it to us at the end of this webinar, and then we can see if we can answer as most of the questions as you give us. And other than that, everything like the slides and the video will upload it A to YouTube. B, you will get an email or a newsletter with the link and the slides, plus a checklist which Arthur actually prepared for you, so that you know what to do when you're facing JavaScript problems. Just in short, my person, my name is Björn Beeth. I'm the Director of Digital Strategies Group EMEA here at Searchmetrics. I'm an online marketer. I've been out there now for 10 years almost as well. Have experience coming from Switzerland, working for big publishing houses as well as big marketplaces, and specialized in large and complex websites, technical SEO and content marketing. And the Digital Strategies Group is an integrated consultancy here at Searchmetrics, meaning that we have different services we offer to our Searchmetrics clients, meaning strategic consulting, SEO consulting, and content marketing services. But let's start with this hot topic now.
Yeah, so let's dive in with some basics and kind of problems search engines have with JavaScript, or what are the biggest problems they have to face when it comes to JavaScript and crawling these pages. So first of all, a quick basic knowledge about JavaScript. And how JavaScript works. So here at this graphic, you can see on the left side a web browser and a web server, and you can see the interaction, how a web browser and a web server interact. So the first step, they will just request get a request from the server. Here an example, we have a PHP script, so it's like the most content management systems works or runs with PHP. The PHP script execute the code and will give it back on the step 3 to the web browser, and the web browser just renders the CSS and drops the content. So that's like a usual HTML website works. When it comes to JavaScript, you can see the step 4 is the major point, because JavaScript is not rendered at the server, it's rendered by the client, by the browser. So when a crawler or a search engine want to see the content that's run by a JavaScript, they have to do the work of the web browser, so like the client. And it's one of the major problems search engines have with JavaScript, because they have to do the work like a web browser do.
And of course, as we see later on, a lot of resources for search engines as well.
Yeah, exactly. So to explain and to make it a little bit more clear how a crawler works, I have here a very basic example how you can imagine how a crawler works. So it's like a headless browser is a browser with visual components, and it shows quite well how Googlebot is interacting with JavaScript. So here you can see it's the headless Chrome. It's the headless browser version of the Chrome browser. And headless browser is a browser without visual components. It doesn't show content or interact like a usual web visitor. It runs commands to interact with the website. And here you can see the first lines are just shortcodes to open the Chrome and the Chromium. At the line 5, you can see a basic example. You can see Chrome is like to open Chrome. The second part is headless. It's like said, open the browser in the headless mode. And then the third thing is not interesting. And the fourth said dump DOM. So just show me the DOM. You can just run this in your terminal with Mac and in the console with your Windows. And after this comment, the headless Chrome will drop the DOM in this terminal or console, and you can see how the headless Chrome runs your JavaScript. Another example is like on the line 7, it's like print to PDF. So it's just saves a PDF of the website on your hard disk. And on the line 9, you can see it makes a screenshot, and you can go on and just move some window sizes and just can work with this. This is just a short example to show you how a crawler interacts with the website and how it interacts with JavaScript.
So it's actually a restricted web browser without any design components and stuff. It's everything a browser does, but without you actually seeing it nicely displayed and arranged, designed.
Exactly. To keep it further, you can just make some automations and scraping if you want. It's like with the Puppeteer API. You can basically run this comments you saw before with JavaScript plus Node.js. So you can run the headless Chrome with some JavaScript comments, and it's a very nice thing for automation and scraping. Just if you're interested in, you can dive into, and I have some 3 sources that will help you to understand and to make your own automations and scrapings. It's like the article by Brandon Morelli. It's a very good guide how to make it work. And the second is the API documentation at GitHub. And of course, the third is the documentation by Google getting started with headless Chrome. So if you want to use it, I would recommend these sources. So let's go and dive to the document Google drops last year. Like to say it's before there was like any sources by Google or not a lot to understand how Google renders websites. So it was a big thing in the JavaScript SEO world, I would say. So and the first sentence is one of the most interesting. It's like The technology behind the rendering is the web rendering service, and it's based on the Chrome version 41. And the Chrome version 41 is, now we have the Chrome 68, 69, 70. So it's like a 3 years old browser technology. Yeah, it's like about 60% of the current version of Chrome. We'll later show more. And according to Google statements, it should be updated in 2018, but it was put post. So they said, no, we will not update it this year, and we don't know when. So yeah, maybe next year or never.
But you will see later on, we are auditing or analyzing a website with the Chrome 41 version. So you see that's really restricted and looks kind of old school.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, and this makes for Chrome 41 alongside with the fetch and render tool and the Search Console the primary debugging and the testing tool. So it was a very nice information Google gave us these days. And just to go deeper, the current transfer protocol HTTP2 is not supported, but however, HTTP2 can be configured to be backward compatible. There's no support for the WebSocket protocol. IndexedDB and WebSQL interfaces for data management in the browser are not supported, and HTTP cookies are removed. And content, there appears that after approval is not indexed for sure. So that's some basic information Google gave us, but the most important information was Google uses 3-year-old technology to render websites. So Björn, for you, like, was your reaction when you heard it or when you read it? This Google using 3-year-olds?
I had double feelings about it. So first of all, I thought, okay, maybe it's not it's not mandatory that they have a very updated version, because it's very it's very easy to do the stuff with an old version. But then on the other side, I thought, okay, maybe they didn't figure it out now how to really do it quite accurate, and that's why they're just testing and waiting until they have fixed it.
Yeah. So nice thoughts. Was like the same. It was like, first of all, I was kind of shocked because it was like, okay, 3 years old technology, but maybe it's not so easy to implement always the current version in the crawling process.
Or we just think it's maybe we think it's more advanced than it actually is, and that's why they're using it. But I don't know.
Okay, so let's go on. So with caniuse.com, you can compare browsers and you can check the features and the technologies of a browser, what you can use, what you cannot use, what's supported and what not. And here it's a quick you can compare the browser Chrome 41 and Chrome 70, and you can see the red lines are these. It's not supported features, so you can see it's quite a lot.
Yeah.
So it's always, you have to check when you build your websites, especially when this JavaScript features provides your content.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you can just check caniuse.com, so you can check what features are supported. And of course, at the developers at Google, the Chrome status to check the features on the Chrome 41. And after that, just a very important information, or kind of important information, is that when you read the first line, here it said, a little bit closer, that the Googlebot is rendering with web rendering service. And if you're kind of deeper into the work, how the Googlebot and the index works, like Barry Adams said, this use of Googlebot is where confuses me. The crawler doesn't render, does it? Correct. Doesn't it? The caffeine is where pages are rendered. And Gary by Google said correct. Also to clarify, VRS is a subsystem of caffeine, just like the page ranker, because yes, we still use it, of the canalization algorithm. So that's a very important information for us. that the Googlebot is not rendering, it's the indexer where pages were rendered. So that brings us to the second biggest problem search engines have with JavaScript. And let me explain this for you in a very basic example. So on the left side, you can see how the Googlebot and the indexer works together. And the first step, you see HTML files are downloaded, links are taken from the source and can be crawled. So the crawler finds links and is just crawling on and on every link they can find. Then the CSS files are downloaded. Googlebot sends all resources to Coffeein, and Coffeein is rendering, indexing, and indexing the content if possible.
So just to wrap it up, like Google is, there is the Googlebot who's crawling. The crawler just crawls URLs, just crawls links, extracts all the links out of it, extracts all the resources like CSS out of it, and sends it to the indexer. And the indexer is rendering everything with the given resources, CSS, links, etc., pp, and it's trying to make sense out of it. And just the picture of this rendered web page is what goes to the index.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So it's like a very basic work, if you can say. Just crawl the whole website, or just crawling as much as possible for the crawling budget, and then sends to the indexer, and the indexer keeps his work done. And then these steps will continue when he comes later. So next day or next week, or when the crawler comes back. But with JavaScript it's a little bit more different. So let's go into the steps. First step is the same. HTML files are downloaded. Second step is CSS and JavaScript data is downloaded and in parallel.
So an additional resource.
Additional resource, exactly. And now comes the problem. Because the Googlebot is not able to render, they not see any other links to crawl. So first, if they want to see other links, they have to send to the indexer. It's like in the step 3, a web rendering service part of Coffeein is used to be execute.js, and the web rendering service renders all files. Then Coffeein can now index the content if necessary. But now the crawler don't saw any content and don't saw other links. We'll explain it later in the 2 wave of indexing. And after that, Googlebot just can see the links and the content because the indexer first have to rendering it. And that's a big problem because Google cannot see the content, cannot see the links, and first, after the work of the indexer, they can see the links. So, and these steps have always to be returned, always to crawl the whole website, which is a very not practical way, and it's a way harder work for Google than on a basic HTML site.
And most of the time is what you will explain later on in the webinar as well, is that most of the time people put all the relevant metadata into the script as well. So it's not put it in the header and you're sending it to the Google index as well. So Google at the first instance can't make any sense out of your website, right?
Exactly.
Crawling, getting it, but doesn't make any sense out of it.
Exactly. Maybe the crawler come back and crawl the other links they find on the home page, and after that they cut it and say, okay, on the next step I will render and keep this crawling on. So there's a nice slide at Google I/O this year by John Miller. There's explaining it quite good how this 2 wave of indexing works. Like I said, the first time the crawler comes, new links to be crawled, and instant first wave of indexing. So like I said, on the first time when you're visiting the client-side rendered JavaScript website, and they always see nothing, they'll just index in the first wave indexing, and after the second step, as rendering sources become available by the indexer, the rendering process goes on, and then the second wave indexing will find. So this is a way Google do it, and it's like it took way long than on crawling on a usual website.
And this comes back to what I just said, right? I mean, if they just crawl it and taken out everything and put it into the queue of first indexing wave, it can take ages or a longer time actually before they're trying to make sense out of it. And even if they don't get it for now, there will be a second, third, and fourth wave of indexing, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So it can take a long time.
Yes, so it's like when you have new web pages and you don't really care about the time, so maybe it's okay. But if you have a relaunch and do it this way, and at the first 2-3 weeks your rankings will gone because Google can see anything. Maybe it comes back later when the content is rendered, but for relaunch it's like
just try to do it before Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah, so that's the like I said, the second big problem search engines have with JavaScript. Now we're comparing or looking into the fetch and render tool on the Search Console, and it's like before we have the informations that Google is working with the technology of on the features of Chrome 41, the major tool we can work, and like I said. The crawler have the features of a Chrome 41. So what's the difference between on the left side, this is how the Google bot saw your website, or on the right side, this is how usual user saw your website. It's like you can see when you check the log files, you can see Googlebot comes with the user agent Googlebot 2.1, like expected, and the Google Search Console bot comes with the Chrome 41. So where the difference is like the Google Search Console bot ignores the robots.txt and some little difference with the rendering of a CSS, but I couldn't find any difference. Maybe there are some, but there are not like so many sources to find out what's the major difference. So like it's like just to see what files are blocked by robots.txt.
But this actually also shows that, it's just a thought. Like when Google is rendering JavaScript websites with Chrome 41, and as we just saw in this comparison list, what is available or readable as a resource and whatnot. So it actually means that the indexed version of your website is not quite accurate rendered by Google, because there are some resources Google can't even read out because of these restrictions from 41, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's like we have another example in the test. I will show you later when it comes to fetch and render tool. So is server-side rendering for SEO no longer necessary? It's a question. Let's go on with experiment by the Bartosz Goralewicz. If you care about JavaScript SEO, it's the first guy you have to know when it comes to JavaScript SEO, and there are a lot of other sources we have in this webinar by him. So how do different search engines crawl and index JavaScript? They had an experiment, and here, as you can see, the only search engine which is able to crawl JavaScript is Google and Ask, but Ask is powered by Google. Why you see the red crosses on Angular 2, I will come back later why it's this case. So it's not just the case that search engines do interact with JavaScript different. It's like the search engines interact different with different JS frameworks. So it's different if it's inline or it's external. And as you can see, different Angular is working not quite the same like other, like for example, React.
And we have to say that Angular is a product of Google, right? And React, for instance, is a product of Facebook.
Yes,
right?
exactly. Yes. So as you can see, that makes this game quite more different. So there was a post by Dan Petrovich who shows an example that that Bing is rendering some websites of some JavaScript client-side JavaScript websites. It's here the example, it's Landy, and as you can see, Bing is able, but it's just the only example I could find. And if you just look at the market share of search engines, and Bing with his 20% market share won't be able to build these big resources to render a JavaScript SEO. And I don't think it's affordable, and impossible for Bing. Like with this small match, Google with almost 80 or 70% is another number, and they are able to do this. Let's go back to this Angular 2 problem. Like I said, there was a big red cross, like Google is not able to render his own framework. How could this be? And there was just a simple bug in the Angular 2 framework to let Google itself having problems indexing Angular 2. So, but on April 26 last year, this bug was corrected, which eliminates the indexing issue with Angular 2. So as you can see, they will just show. I would just want to show with this example how small issue with JavaScript can make this impossible for crawlers to render the website. So it's another big problem. Let's dive into the summary of the findings. And another big problem, what I will show you later, is that rendering JavaScript makes it need very big resources. So it's like when we check later and you look into the Google Web Developers tool, you will see it will cost a lot of CPU power. So that's the power what the server of search engines have to provide.
This was actually new to me. You just told me this morning when we had coffee that it's not only based on the server. It's also based on the CPU power of your laptop or your computer.
Exactly.
If it's strong enough to handle all these resources, right?
Yeah.
And this was new to me as well. So if you have, just take a look at your, target group of customers. Mm-hmm. If you know that your service is more towards elderly people, or like 50 plus or so, you can imagine that they don't have the most fancy computers anymore. Yes. So if you then decide to go with a fancy technology like JavaScript, then you might have a problem because their CPU is not very powerful, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if you compare the page speed with a high-end computer and with a usual computer, we see the page speed drops.
Yeah.
So just on your on a very fast computer, we have on a good page 3 or 5 seconds. On a bad computer or old smartphone, you can have over 30 seconds. So it's like a big gap between this.
The biggest I saw was 42 seconds. We just had it last week or so.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Good luck.
Yeah. So and this power to render it when the search engine want to render a website, have to bring this power on the server to make this make it possible. So back on the slide, summary of findings. So Google has to do the rendering of JS like the web browser do. So the client side work. Google uses the web rendering service for rendering. Googlebot features and the Google features and technologies at the level of Chrome 41. So it's like a 3-year-old browser. Rendering is done by the indexer, like Google's Caffeine, and not the crawler Googlebot. HTTP2 transfer protocol is not supported, like I said, and the WebSocket protocol IndexedDB and the WebSQL interface are not supported. And Google interacts different with different JS frameworks, and no crawler renders JavaScript except Google, except this small example by Dan.
And same here. Look at the, if you don't want to, take care about JavaScript SEO, then take care about your clients and your customers. And if you see that, the majority of your traffic is coming from Bing or Yahoo or other search engines as Google, then you have a problem because they don't render it, right?
Yeah. So at this point of this presentation, with knowledge, we will just be the providing a website provider for users with high-end PC and Google users.
Yeah.
So it's like a very small amount of users we compare. So let's bring us to the auditing and best practices of JavaScript websites.
And I try my best now. You will see that you're losing our beautiful faces on a monitor. And we will just jump into the browser here. I will open it again. Exactly. Then we start here. And just to, before you start, do your auditing, because I think the slide you have is very important as well. Just before we start, that you be reminded what search actually wants. And search wants unique indexable URLs. And if you can provide Google with unique indexable URLs, the bonus will be that you have crawlable URL. They will be indexed, the content will be indexed, and all the links you get or all the links you point out will be seen by Google. Without this, it's hard to rank. Right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like the basics. So let's compare this client side. It's a JavaScript rendered website. It's server side rendered. I will just show you example that the source code is not that you can look on when you auditing JavaScript rich website. So you can see that here's the body area, and as you can see, you can see nothing. So to make it sure, you can just copy one of these texts and try to find it here, but as you can see, here is nothing. So this is how a website looks when it's the source code and when the JavaScript isn't rendered, so the pre-rendered version. To check the rendered code, you have just to right-click with the Google Chrome, and let's say here it's in English, it's detect.
In English, it's, I think so, yeah, detect.
Yeah, and then you will see here the rendered source code. So like you can refresh the website and you can see like the source code will build up. If you want to audit this code, you just click on the HTML, say copy, and copy out the HTML, just paste it to one of your favorite text programs and you can audit like usual HTML. Yeah, that's the first step you can, that you have in mind when auditing websites. You don't look at the source code, always look at the DOM.
And this goes back to the beginning of the presentation, like a headless browser just works. And it's the same with your browser, right? Because it does the request on the server, it gets the file with the JavaScript website, and then it needs to extract everything and build the DOM just as you showed, right? And this is this is what Google needs to do as well.
Yes. So let's go into Chrome 41.
And while you're clicking, I can explain that, as we just mentioned, that Google is using Chrome 41 to render all JavaScript websites. It's very important that you download a Chrome version just to debug and analyze your website, because everything you see in Chrome 41 is giving out as an error. It's something you need to speak to your IT with.
Exactly. So like a quick look. And here we go. It's like the example. So here you can see some errors. There's like just fail to load TFF file, so just a text file. So it's not, it's not a bad failure or a bad error to repair it. But there's like if you're providing content by JavaScript, you always have to look in this console, and as a developer, you have to check the errors in your console.
Yeah, because if it's critical content, which the website needs to actually function or to display stuff, and it's, there's an error in Chrome 41, then you might have a problem at the end as well.
Yes, exactly. So the Chrome 41 is your go-to browser for debugging errors with JavaScript when it comes to SEO.
Okay, then we jump into the next method.
Yeah, so it's like all these informations are by the Google I/O at 2015 and the 2018, so this year, and the Google, the Angular U conference that Google is saying what we can do to make JavaScript website better. So this, like was said before, and yeah, it's auditing with Chrome 41. And now we come to the auditing with the Google Search Console Fetch and Render tool. So it's like fetch and render tool only suitable for testing if Googlebot is technically able to render. That's a very nice example by Tomasz. It's the colleague of Bartosz at the Elevate SEO agency, and he had a very nice experiment, and he was like, here we can see a JavaScript file that's like wait 120. So this JavaScript wait 2 minutes after they run the JavaScript to put in the content. And when he just runs the fetch and render tool at the Google Search Console, you can see everything was fine, everything was rendered, and it looks great. Mm-hmm. But after he he runs a site request at Google, you can see the content was not able. So that brings us to the conclusion that Google is not that patient like the fetch and render tool by Google Search Console. So Google just skipped this JavaScript and rendered everything else. And as you can see in the site request, the content wasn't fully loaded. So the Google Search Console is, like I said, for technically, if your website is technically able to technically able to render a website, but you cannot make sure that the content is really indexed. You always have to make a site request to get sure.
Then let's jump back to a browser, and then let's do a site search so the people know what we mean with it. So back to the browser.
Yeah, so like Google mentioned by his own, you better use mobile friendly. You mean the site request?
Then we do one site search just to show what we mean.
Okay, so just like with this example. So copy this. Site. And just
a piece of content in there.
And you can see here it works and is indexed.
It's just to check if the content is indexed by Google and displayed or not, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you can see it's not the home page, it's another page. So maybe that's a piece of content which is not always rendered. So here you can see it could be a problem. Yeah, just a basic site request. But after you testing with a fetch and render tool and make sure you have no errors and no files are blocked and everything works fine, but the content, to make sure if to check the DOM, is better use the mobile friendly tester by Google. You can always use the rich media tester, but in a mobile first world, we always use the mobile friendly tester. It's like the same, but just mobile. Yeah. So in this case, you can just make sure how the source code looks after rendering, and to compare the rendered code by Google and the rendered code by your browser, you can use the diff checker. So it's just a tool to check the difference between some texts. Oh no, it's wrong. So copy this in the left side. So, and now it was the page holidays. Yeah, it was the home page. The same here. Let's see what the browser did.
So you're actually comparing how Google renders the website and how the browser renders the website.
Exactly. Just to see if there are any difference between source code. Working, yeah, and as you can see, there are quite a bit difference.
That's a biggie.
Yeah, it's a big difference. Yep. So yeah, that's a way you can check what's the difference between Google and the, just you have here some spaces, but as you can see, it's a way longer code than on the right side.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah. Okay, so that's one case you can make sure. And after the fetch and render tool, the Chrome 41, the mobile-friendly tester, and the rich media tester, or all tools provided by Google. Of course, there are some tools external, and there is one great tool Björn will show us.
Of course, there's one tool, it's called Searchmetrics. And as most of you will be a client of Searchmetrics, you will have access to it as well, meaning that within your project area, we have the site structure crawler where we can crawl websites as well. And there's the possibility to crawl JavaScript-based websites as well. So meaning that we go render the website and crawl it just as Google would do. And the good thing with it is that you can compare your crawls as well. And I just will show you this example here. So what we did is on the left side we crawled the website without the JavaScript crawler, and on the right side you see what we found with JavaScript crawler. And as you can see, that it takes almost doubled as time to crawl JavaScript site. So the loading time is much larger. Of course, we will find much more content and much more, meat at the bone, so to say. And that's why the domain score difference is such as big as here. And of course, we will find much more pages, which you can see here, 46% of no index pages versus with no scroller, just 5%. So meaning that we are finding much more with the JavaScript crawler, and that's how Google works as well. So if there's no JavaScript execution ability, then there will be nothing to be found. And as you can see, of course, that with JavaScript, these are the blue lines here, we find much more pages than without the JavaScript rendering. And same with JavaScript loading times, as you can see from the blue bars here, that it takes much longer. This is especially good when you are planning a relaunch or so, that you can just put both websites and compare to each other. If you have one or two URLs and one is on React or running on Angular or whatever library or a framework you have, and then you compare it with your normal HTML site, you already can see if there's a difference and what you need to improve.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's a very nice tool, because the first question I asked was like, what rendering engine do you use, and how you make sure to render as close as Google.
Exactly.
And of course, it's go-to tool if you want to do auditing. Not this old way without any tool and do it with Excel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go back to the slides. Good. So when you want to check or crawl a website, for example, for another tool like Screaming Frog, you have to go to configurations by the rendering JavaScript and set it OK. Just the default settings are Ajax timeouts for 5 seconds. Take in consideration that Screaming Frog uses the rendering engine from the Chromium project Blink, so it's not the web rendering service, but it's nice when you want to see some URLs and content. And if you do this rendering crawling process with a JavaScript rendering, you can see as well that this needs a lot of resources, and it took forever to render like a website with over 100,000 URLs. Yeah. So it's another example to see how much resource it takes. And the 5 seconds is actually a good benchmark, because Dan Schur, the guy who founded Screaming Frog, he made some tests, and he just figured that after 5 seconds, Google just drops indexing and drops crawling, and if it takes too long, then Google might just skip your URL and is not able to see anything on it. Yeah, so when it comes to rendering, I mean, it's like a very good best practice for do this in this 5 seconds. Yeah. Yeah. So like we said, it's the 5-second rule. Make sure your content will drop into this 5 seconds. I mean, like just the content for SEO. If there is some other content you will reload or load it later, it's okay, but make sure your content is loaded in this 5 seconds. And of course, make sure your content is loaded in the load event and not an use event, like on-click events, for example.
But there's, of course, always, there's always content for everybody. It's not just content for SEO, because you just said if it's content for SEO, but content should, be for.
Yeah, exactly. But for example, if it's a slider or something else that Google don't always need, like to make sure the content for SEO, which is important, have to rank. Then we have some best practices by Google, how to use URLs. What is a good URL? What is a bad URL? It's like for the basic SEO the same. Don't use hash or hash banks, because after the hash and the hash bank, Google ignores the URL. And make sure all your pages are providing his own URL. And of course, it should give the HTTP status code 200.
As normal.
As normal, yes. And of course, realize links with href, not with other on-click events when you want to use on-click events. So just do it like here in this example, which is out of the Google I/O presentation by John Mueller this year. And then we have another nice example of how use of canonical tags. So here you can see a tweet by John Mueller. We currently only process the rel canonical on the initial fetched non-rendered version. So he said, make sure your canonical tags are provided before the rendering, so on a pre-rendered version. There is a nice test that shows by Ego and Hen that Google also uses canonical tags via JavaScript, so in the rendered version, but in the experiment, the canonicized URLs were not indexed until 34 days, so it's not the case to work with it. So like John said, always make sure your canonical are fetched on the non-rendered version.
Same here, try this before Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. And not just the canonical, it's a good way to provide all important informations in the header, like the title, meta description, or even open graph informations, like if you care about social media, if you care about Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms, because like we said before, only Google is trying to render. And if you're not providing some non-rendered version information, you will just drop the possibility to be in this networks. So, and always solving structured data with JSON. It's like a basic recommendation, and not only for JavaScript. And of course, make sure your href text should be on a not rendered version, if possible. So Google said it was like in December last year. It said, given these advances in the second quarter of 2018, we'll be switching to rendering these pages on Google's site rather than on required that sites do this themselves. In short, we'll no longer be using the Ajax crawling scheme. So Google will not stop crawling. Will stop crawling Ajax. Only the AX crawling scheme with the help of URL escape fragment are not longer requested by Google. But Bing bot will continue to use this scheme. So if you want to have a backfall for other search engines, you can still use it, but Google will not request it anymore. So this message was in December, and they said in the second quarter of 2018. So it's like some days ago. So yeah, like in this case, don't need it anymore. Just another recommendations by Google for lazy loading for pictures. Just use it non-script and use shimmer.org JSON like in the example before. Here you have some bad examples and good examples. Also, there are the recommendations by Google at this Google I/O this year by John Miller. Summary of findings on the auditing of websites. Just make it, just in a short. Source code analysis, always analyze is not enough. Only the rendered code displays all content. So make sure you just analyze the rendered content. So the DOM content must be or should be displayed after 5 seconds. Content must be displayed after the load event. And Google Search Console is only for the technical rendering requirements. Like I said, if you want to analyze the DOM, always use the mobile-friendly tester. And don't use hash banks. Realize structured data with JSON. And Ajax crawling scheme is not longer supported, and display the canonical tag and other informations in the header before rendering.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So to just keep your mind with all these informations, a question to you, Björn: would you recommend JavaScript to SEO, or would you say, okay, with this information we can run a client-side rendered JavaScript websites for SEO?
I don't think so. But I know that it's not going away. It will be, it will increase, the usage of JavaScript frameworks and libraries will be increasing, especially in the mobile age, mobile site age. So single page applications will raise. So we need to face actually, the challenge. But I don't think it's good now. So Google is not able, as you saw during the slides as well. I think maybe there will be some improvements, but for now, I wouldn't recommend at all to rely fully on JavaScript.
Yeah.
But there are some solutions which help us to bridge, close the gap until Google is much more advanced in this.
Yeah. So, and one of the recommended ways is to do pre-rendering. So server-side rendered website, not the client-side rendered website. So it's called pre-rendering, and that's just not like only for Google, because if you care on other search engines or on other social media and other crawlers, you have to provide a server-side rendered website to bring this content to other crawlers. So how does pre-rendering works is just a quick and basic example. So when the client makes a request on the server, there will always be checked the user agent. If it's a bot, the bot will get the pre-rendered version of the website. So the pre-rendering is just cache the whole website, rendering it on the server, and give it back to the crawler without any rendering required by Google. If it's not bot, if it's a usual user, so they will just load the page normally. So it's like a small explanation how pre-rendering works.
And it's really good. You showed me this morning as well, because I just know from tools, how to you can actually act like a Google bot with different tools, but you just showed me there's a browser extension. It's called User Agent Switch also,
yes,
which you can use for Chrome, and especially good if you are you have your new JavaScript website on a test environment or a beta environment, and you want to see what Google gets with pre-rendered pages. You just switch the user agent in the browser, and then you see what Google gets. It's pretty easy, and you don't need to set up very sophisticated tools in order to see it.
Yes, exactly. It's the best way to check it. If you want to make sure you can use this add-on on Chrome or Firefox or other browsers. So here's the example how to check it, your pre-rendering on Screaming Frog. On the left side, you can see there is the user agent Screaming Frog and just text only, so no rendering. And as you can see, there's just the home page and nothing else was crawled. On the middle graphic, you can see there is user agent Googlebot and text only, so no rendering engine by Screaming Frog. But here you can see the Googlebot can crawl all URLs, and because it's the pre-rendered version of this website. On the right side, you can see it's back to the Screaming Frog user agent and JavaScript. In this case, Screaming Frog uses his own pre-rendering engine, rendering engine, sorry. And here is another example. If you try to run a website on over 100 URLs with JavaScript rendering, it just took years to rendering. So another example to show how much performance JavaScript rendering needs.
But then with pre-rendered websites should be faster actually. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's cached.
Yeah, it's
already.
cached. It's like a usual website, like a cached WordPress website, for example. Yeah. And here, like Bernd, you said before, there is a user add-on using the ASIN switcher, and here is the website we saw before. Here you can see on the left side is the default, so it's the Chrome user agent. You can see there is just the source code without rendering code. On the right side is the user agent Googlebot, and you can see there is the pre-rendered version of the website. So that's a good way and a good example how to show you that the Google crawl don't need to render your website, and you can make sure that the content you provide will index and crawl.
Yeah.
So there are some pre-rendering services, for example, like pre-render.io. You can make some own solutions like with Phantom.js or with the Puppeteer API and headless Chrome. But like pre-render.io, like you told me before, it's very it's not cheap. It's very expensive.
Yeah, we were evaluating it for a website I was responsible for, and like the pricing is based on how many pages you need to cache. And you know, I was working for a website which has millions of pages, so it's just a fortune. And I mean, we're coming to this, but it's, you know, if you have a price comparison website or so, price is changing all the time, and then you need to, you know, pre-render it again and again. So if you have a really big website, this costs a fortune. It's not affordable.
Yeah, it's very expensive. And even if you do it on your own way, on your own servers, it's not cheap as well.
Yeah.
Because you have to bring a lot of server power and performance to render it. Like daily, if you have over 1,000 websites.
Yeah, but as you said in earlier this day, so the best would be, you know, setting up your own server, setting up a headless Chrome on the server, and rendering the pages by itself. Just find a good developer within the company, and then.
Yeah, you have to have a good developer team. So like Google told us this year on the Google I/O as well. They call it dynamic rendering, and even they told to use not the same server to render your website, and use a different server, second server, because the performance is so powerful for rendering. And if you could just melt down your own server when you want rendering. So like here's the same example. On the left side, there's the content for the user. It's the not rendered content. And on the right side, you can see it's the bots. They will get a rendered website. And Google recommends Puppeteer and RenderTone as tools to do this. And another nice example, if somebody, if your SEO and your CO or your client said, no, I don't want to use pre-rendering, I just want to do a client-side rendering website, just show them this example. So Google's own video platform, YouTube, use pre-rendering. You can see on the left side is the user agent Chrome, and JS is on. So you can see the usual YouTube website. When you just turn JS off, JavaScript, you can see nothing. But when you open a website as a Googlebot user agent, you can see you get a pre-rendered version of website. So even Google uses pre-rendering for his websites, or like they said, dynamic rendering.
If you're curious about how to disable JavaScript, there's another extension for Chrome or Firefox as well, which you can just download, or you go to the preferences, but it's better to use the Chrome extension.
Yeah, it's just a one click.
Yeah,
and you can deactivate it. So as you can see, another example why to use pre-rendering on your website. And But there, like we said before, there's some disadvantages of pre-rendering. Requests a good and competent development team to get everything running smoothly. It's complex debugging needed, and it's a great effort. And they need larger resources. Server performance are necessary for large pages with the latest content. So very big effort. And like Bartosz said in his webinar before, there's like if you render a usual HTML website and a JavaScript website, it's like 1 to 100. So you can the performance of a JavaScript website took 100 more performance than an HTML website. So yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of performance needed for JavaScript, like we said 1,000 times. Yeah, and some other disadvantages: users and crawlers receive different content, danger of cloaking. But I think that the amount of failures could possibly are very small, so it's not this big disadvantage. And pages are cached for a long time, so no real-time content, like with this refreshing cache, like we said before, and yeah, complex debugging needed, so it's a great effort. There's a nice solution. It's called isomorphic JavaScript, but just want to show you to make it complete. It's there is with isomorphic application, JavaScript code can be executed by both the server and the client. So that allows both the crawlers and the users to see the same content. They just share the content like you see in the graphic. So it's dynamic content can still be changed by the client, by the browser. And hence crawlers don't have to render JavaScript anymore, but in this next slide, you can see only certain JavaScript frameworks are suitable for the isomorphic application, like Angular Universe, for example.
React as well?
I don't think so. And yeah, device requests more effort, and it's therefore more expensive, and it's unsuitable for small projects, like for example, yeah, because it's way more experience and know-how needed on a high level to make this run smoothly.
Sounds like an alien movie.
Yeah.
Isomorphic.
Yeah, kind of.
Or
yeah.
like a black metal band from Norway.
Yeah, so I hope in the next years, the next time we will see this topic more often in the JavaScript world, maybe. Yeah, so like I asked you before, could JavaScript be recommended for SEO?
No.
Here are some words, by example, Jeff Wellplay at the Angular U. He said about Angular 2 server rendering: if you search for any competitive keyword terms, it's always going to be server rendered sites. And the reason is because although Google does index client-side rendered HTML, it's not perfect yet, and other search engines don't do it as well. So if you care about SEO, you still need to have server rendered content. And another quote by Bartosz: ranking well with client-side rendered JavaScript websites is very hard, if not impossible. So I think we have all four the same thoughts about JavaScript SEO.
Yeah.
And some thoughts about me about JavaScript and SEO. Not every crawler renders JS, for example, like not even search engines like social media platforms like Bing, like Facebook and Twitter. And crawlers use different technologies, for example. So if Google ever will be able to crawl JavaScript and render JavaScript, pretty sure they use his own technology and own features. So we have to make sure your website renders for every crawler in this world, and let's make it even more difficult. Tool providers use different technologies. For example, Searchmetrics tries to keep it as close as possible to Google, which is very good. And these are there are different in rendering between JS frameworks. Like we said, there are frameworks that work and frameworks that work not so good with JS rendering. And yeah, there's a little transparency from the search engine providers. Only Google gives us some information, others don't. And yeah, even with the use of best practice measures, no guarantees the current ranking with client-side rendered websites Auditing analysis are far more complex and therefore more expensive, and new challenges request new approaches.
Plus, I mean, what's always good, if management or development is not quite sure about, pre-rendering and JavaScript, I mean, go to the management or development, show him the case of that YouTube is using it. It wouldn't work without. And the second is the fact that Google itself is presenting dynamic rendering at one of the biggest conferences, right? I mean, those two facts are, a good sign of how important it is.
Exactly, yeah. Or even if you just want to build a website, just make sure the content which is important for the crawler and for the search engine is not rendered. So if you just go for full rich JavaScript website, there's, like you said, there will be this problems.
Yeah.
Okay, so just for the German guys, I have a JavaScript SEO guide you can check on my website. It's koschklink.de. So I got some recommendations by Bartosz and Barry on Twitter. So if you're familiar with German, go for it. But we have a JavaScript SEO auditing checklist. It's a small checklist where there are the most important points we just showed you in this webinar. You can just check it if you did it, and you will get it later at the email.
Yeah, we will send it after the webinar together with the slides and the checklist straight to your email account.
Nice. And there are some resources by Barry Adams as well. It's a big list of JavaScript SEO resources. They're like 70 or 80 resources, including by Google and experiment tests. So I think everything in this SEO world about this topic is here in this list. So go for it.
And there's one one article from Barry Adams I really like, is where he explains what we just explained, how crawling, rendering, indexing, and the query engine works at Google, so that you really have a picture how Google really works. It's a great article.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to go deeper with how Googlebot and the indexer and all this rendering, indexing, crawling process works, it's a very good recommendation. Okay, so yeah, that was like, if you want to get in touch with me or have any other questions beside this, we have here, don't be afraid to send me on social media, like on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or even send me an email.
Yes, and if you are interested in our consulting service here at Searchmetrics, we offer content marketing service, SEO consulting, and strategic consulting. Of course, JavaScript is one part of it. If you need to do it or not, you can just visit searchmetrics.com/DSG and request a proof of concept or whatever. Get in contact. You can follow me on Twitter, Björn Beeth, on Twitter, quite active. We have quite good exchange on Instagram and Twitter.
Exactly. But not Facebook.
I'm not on Facebook.
I know you're not.
No,
okay.
No.
So that's why I couldn't mark you on my post.
Yeah. But tell me, why all the JavaScript SEOs have a beard? Like Bartosz has a beard, you have a beard.
I don't know. Maybe it's
JavaScript beard.
Maybe it's JavaScript beard. Yeah. And you have to be a Polish guy.
And you have to be a Polish guy, right. Okay, thank you very much, Artur. I think we have one question here from the audience. Let's try to get on this. What do you think about MRL inspection on the new GSC version? Is it reliable or not?
Yeah, that's a very new feature. You know this feature. It was like, I just sent you 4 days ago the updated slides for the webinar. And a day later, this feature comes out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's like...
explain what it is first, because if it's quite new.
Yeah, so you can put in your URL, and the Google Search Console will show you the rendered version of the website, so like the mobile-friendly tester. And you can see all your recommendations, you can see canonicals, you can see hreflang tags. So it's like a go-to tool next to the mobile-friendly tester.
Ah, cool.
So it was like this new wasn't even on this 1 week old slides.
So it's reliable, you say?
Yeah, it's reliable. Yes.
So more than fetch and render, of course.
Yeah.
But like also reliable as the mobile testing tool.
Yeah, and if you want, you can use the diff checker to compare the source code by the URL inspector, the Google Search Console, and the mobile friendly tester if you want to make compare this both source codes.
Cool stuff. So I hope you could take a lot away, and you're just updated on everything regarding JavaScript. As I said, you can contact Arthur or us on any of those topics. Thank you for listening. Thank you for register, and hope you can make it to the next webinar. So thank you, Arthur.
Thank you, Björn.
And
it was nice. Bye.